Good evening. Thank you for coming out this evening. As you're getting settled, I'll briefly introduce everyone and why we're here. Thank you for coming out on a Tuesday evening in Baltimore. My name is Gene Foley. I'm a William & Mary class of 1989, a proud parent of a member of the class of 2019 and a William & Mary Foundation Board trustee. And it's such a joy to be with you here this evening. This is a slightly historic evening because we don't always get the president to Baltimore, but she is here with us this evening. And there's one other brief bit of William & Mary housekeeping I'd like to let everybody know of before we leave this evening, and that is keep your eyes out in your emails, regular mail, whatever. Baltimore Yule Log will be celebrated December 4th at 7 p.m. at the Avenue Kitchen and Bar. So make sure you get that on your calendars. Thank you for coming out and joining us here in Baltimore, a city defined by its harbor, its grit, and its vision for the future. And there really is power in us gathering here tonight by the water. And if you've not been to this facility before, I suspect many of you have, it is right by the water. It's a long Lamar Jackson touchdown pass and we hit water. But there's a lot of power in us gathering here by the water this evening in a place that knows firsthand both the promise and the challenges of coastal living. And that makes Baltimore the right place to talk about leadership that meets the moment. Tonight is exactly that. Leadership that sees what's ahead and acts boldly. William & Mary is the nation's leader in coastal resilience, bringing science, business, and innovation together to safeguard homes, communities, and commerce, not just here in the Mid-Atlantic, but around the globe. This work is deeply personal for us because William & Mary alumni have always been at the forefront of tackling some of the most pressing issues of our time. Tonight, we're fortunate to hear from one of those alumni, Tim Carroll, class of '87, whose career at Microsoft placed him at the center of data and global problem solving. His story reflects what thousands of William & Mary graduates are doing every day, translating knowledge into action that makes a difference for communities across the globe. It's also my privilege to introduce a leader whose vision is ensuring William & Mary's preeminence in this work. Under the leadership, our university is driving resilience, innovation, and global engagement. She is shaping a future where William & Mary is not only the alma mater of a nation, but also a partner for the world. Please join me in welcoming William & Mary's 28th president, Catherine Rowe, and our distinguished alumnus, Tim Carroll.
Really appreciate that. Yeah. Hey, Tim? You can get that chair. Wow. Thank you, Jean. That was amazing. Good evening, William & Mary. Good evening, Baltimore. Did I say it right? Okay. Baltimore. All right. I know that the William & Mary community here is very close-knit, so I wanted to start by just acknowledging that many of us are holding Chip Mason in our hearts right now. This is the human being, we all know he was an alumnus of William & Mary, a titan of industry here, somebody deeply loyal to this city and its community, brilliant in imagining a future, dedicated to giving back. He is the person who is the namesake of our business school. And so I keep thinking about how delighted he would be to see all of us here tonight in this incredibly cool space, which is all about artistic, creative building of one kind or another, making, in a mode that we care a lot about at William & Mary right now. The university that he loved, not Johns Hopkins, William & Mary, is evolving as the preeminent public liberal arts and sciences university for the 21st century. And we are in something of a renaissance now. That's a phrase I heard recently as a Shakespeare scholar. I love it. I also know that the Renaissance was a moment of great upheaval and turmoil, great transformation, and that the extraordinary works, the flowering of economy, of arts, of culture that we see in that period has an enormous amount to do with how constraints can enable creativity. William and Mary is constant in a way that the Renaissance would have cared about in our evergreen commitments, the values that inspire us, the commitment to academic excellence, to extraordinary experiences of students that transform how they think and who they are as human beings, the commitment to community and to relationships, innovation, and innovating constantly in a way that's looking at what are the outcomes that are going to matter most to our graduates. And we transform. That's the other really important pole of the Renaissance. We transform, as we have done for centuries, and as Jean just said, to meet the greatest needs of this generation, as we will in the next generation. So our topic today is designed to help us think about those transformations and the through lines that are William and Mary through lines through them. As Jean said, coastal resilience is front of mind here in this city. And what we do today is going to define the future of coastal communities everywhere. Think about these numbers. Around the world, 3.3 billion human beings live on coastlines. In the United States, nearly 128 Americans live on coastlines. And here, nearly 600,000 human beings live on or near vulnerable coastlines. So for those coastal communities and everybody who is connected to them, healthy environments are essential for national security, for food systems, for transportation, for building well and sustainably, for every part of the local economy. And the solutions to sustainability in these coastlines are going to require the kind of data-driven decision-making that we want to talk about right now. William & Mary is positioned to lead globally. We have incredible assets. We have the Marine Science Institute in the world that focuses on coastlines. When you think about marine science, the last 50 years have been what you've seen on PBS. Submersibles, deep ocean exploration. But we already know that the next 50 years are going to be about coastal ecosystems. So this past year, we celebrated a $100 million gift, the largest in William & Mary's history, to name the Batten School of Coastal and Marine Sciences at William & Mary. This is, let me give you a number of firsts. First of all, it's the first gift of this magnitude for coastal or environmental studies in the country. This is the kind of gift that we see for medical systems. It's an announcement that research in this area will be as important to human flourishing as research in the field of health sciences. That gift was followed by a $50 million gift from the Stravitz Foundation and Todd Stravitz, Bromkhorst Foundation and Todd Stravitz, to create the Stravitz Scholars, which makes the Bachelor of Science in the Batten School free tuition in perpetuity. Yeah. It's really extraordinary because, again, there are only 4 degrees in this country now that are free tuition. The other 3, as you may know, one of them's in this city, are medical degrees. So again, a watershed moment announcing, and that is a pun, yes, a watershed moment announcing the significance of the professionals who train in coastal and marine sciences. We're thinking of policy-savvy scientists and scientifically astute and fluent policymakers and everything in between. What's so important about free tuition for this degree is that it takes the risk away. When you go into, and you all know this, right? When you head into a new field or new part of every industry, it's a risky undertaking, especially at a time when there's so much rapid change. What free tuition does is it takes the risk away from the human beings who are willing to reach into that new path. This fall, we opened a School of Computing, Data Science, and Physics to lead the future of technology and AI. We'll talk about that a little bit more. In 2019, laying the groundwork, we launched the Institute for Integrative Conservation, which spans all of William & Mary's now 6 schools, thinking in a larger sense about conservation strategy and partnering with organizations, businesses, and nonprofits outside of the university. So we're beginning to bring these assets together right now to think about how we can partner with government, with industry, and with communities directly where they are to create the solutions that we need. William & Mary is the place to go if you're interested in these problems. So without further ado, I'm so thrilled to be sitting here with the head of Microsoft's climate portfolio, Tim Carroll, and we'll move to some questions. I'm going to interview Tim just a little bit to get us going, and then we'll open the floor to the room. And anything that you want to ask, we're psyched to answer. All right. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
How long was the drive?
The drive was only 35 minutes, but I do have to make one small clarification. I'm the former head of weather and climate at Microsoft, and for the last, since May, I've been building more than my fair share of Wayfair and IKEA furniture. I built 2 barns in the back and keep you busy, and then did a lot of traveling. So we're figured
nice.
That piece out.
That's
so
nice.
so
nice.
That's the other thing too is that I get to speak tonight as a private citizen and not as an employee of Microsoft. So.
That's great. With so many hats on, Tim, just run down really quickly all the hats that you wear at William & Mary.
So I'm on the board of trustee, the foundation board. I'm a trustee on the foundation board. I was one of the founding board members for the Global Research Institute, which is an institute, if you go take a look at it, it's done extraordinary work in terms of being able to span multiple areas of policy, governance, and democracy, but underlined with the power of data-driven decision-making to go drive it. And then I've also been very involved with both VIMS and the Batten School because of my work on the weather and climate prediction pieces of it, and could not believe when I had gone all in on weather and climate, the number of times that I'd heard William & Mary mentioned when I didn't even know where VIMS was when I went here. And so I thought, I probably ought to look into this.
And you're an alumnus.
Excuse me?
And you're an alumnus.
Oh, that's right, yeah. I'm
That's
an
right.
alumnus.
That's right.
Yeah.
And an uncle.
Yes, and an uncle. My nephew, one of the great joys of the time that I've been back engaged with William & Mary was that my nephew, who was, he went to high school in Montgomery County, crushed it in the STEM stuff, got into basically every engineering school that he applied to, but chose to go to William & Mary because what he said was, now, I do not think he and I share a gene pool here, but what he said was, Uncle Timmy, I can learn computer science in my basement, right? I mean, how hard is that? I want to go somewhere that I can actually apply it and solve problems. I was like, all right, now we're cooking.
That's William & Mary.
Right?
So if you're interested, by the way, in our new school, which was an endeavor of the departments involved, it was a bottom-up endeavor, that is exactly the student that we're recruiting here. The one that wants to use those technologies to solve problems and wants the liberal arts breadth to help them understand what the scientific application could show, could do, could accomplish, and where we need to go with it.
Yep.
Yeah. So I have a handful of quick questions for you, Tim.
Fire away.
I'd love to hear how the businesses and industries adapting to rising coastal risks, what are they doing? What are you seeing as the most important leading edge actions that they're taking?
Well, a large part of the problem is that while everyone's doing something, nobody's doing enough, and nobody's doing it in a cohesive manner, right? So there really is nobody connecting the dots between what the very real threat of a altered environment, whatever we want to call it that we're not supposed to call it, but whatever is happening that people know is happening, that they are now finally feeling it on their bottom line and are not sure exactly how to go address this, because in order to address it, first you have to acknowledge the problem, and then B, you've got to start lining up the only way out of this is the science. This is not a finance problem. This is not a business problem. This is not a policy problem. This is a science problem that we need to go address. And so you've got multiple industries right now who have now acknowledged that there are things that they need to do to address this, and they are right at that time that they're attempting to address it, and they thought, and these are US-based companies, they were going to be able to go to NOAA. In the last 6 months, 17,000 years of weather and climate experience has walked out the door at NOAA. 17,000 years, right? And so what that means is that you've got an industry that is desperately in search of just real problems that are connecting their business challenges to the science that's behind it. So they don't need more science, they need more connectors, right? And at the same time, there is going to be a vacuum in terms of who's actually generating that science, which is why it is now Vim's and Batten's moment to step into that void.
This is how Tim and I met, because I wrote a piece on business translators, on people who could connect, let's say, the science, the solutions to a particular big business problem or mission. And he wrote me an email saying, let me tell you about how my life since William & Mary has prepared me for this kind of work. And then I thought, I got to reel him in.
Well, the better part of that is that I had not been back to campus in 30 years. And then when President Rose said, well, I'll see you at homecoming, and I said, well, I don't really go to homecoming. And somebody was like, hey, ding dong, when the president of the university invites you to homecoming, you go to homecoming, right? And 5 years in, here I am, right?
And we are so much the better for it, Tim.
Yeah.
So let's talk about flood modeling, because that is, I would say, one of the things people may not know about the Batten School and VIMS is that we have the world's best flood model. And I want to ask how a model like this, it's called Schism, not a very marketable title, but we'll work on that. But how can a model like Schism, alongside the data and the predictive analytics that it enables, how can it speed or improve a business solution?
Right. So, first of all, it's important to understand that when we talk about Schism being, and whether it's best or whether it's top three, it is absolutely one of the premier, most valuable flood prediction models on the planet.
We can tell you within a meter on any map on your property, the steps in front of your house, where the flood from the hurricane will stop.
And the reason that's so important is because we actually have a chance, and quite frankly, one of the reasons I left Microsoft was because I wanted to have a chance to have global impact. We at William & Mary have a chance to have global impact, because the way a model works, the model's not built for the Chesapeake Bay. The model is the model, and then you apply it to different areas. But what's so important about what's happening within VIMS, Batten, and William & Mary right now is that there's really three pieces to how people predict. And I just have to say it because it's still, when they had the floods in Texas and people said this was an act of God and nobody could predict it, that's not true. That could have been predicted.
It was predicted.
Yeah, I saw it, right? Wasn't supposed to, but I've seen the models, right? So that occurred. I mean, that was predicted. So with all of that being said, now I'm all fired up. So with all that being said, there's really three pieces of this. There's the model itself, which is Joseph Jiang, who's the professor that has built it, has spent his life building this model. And this is not something that AI is going to transform after somebody asks ChatGPT to go build a model, right? So you've got the model, and then you've got what's called sensor data, right? Those are all of those bits of data that are temperature, current, humidity, all of the other things that go into and feed the model, so that those measurements can then be put into a formula that then calculates what is the likelihood. It's all physics. That is the likelihood of an event happening at what point. And then there's the compute. Because if it doesn't matter if the model is 100% accurate, if it takes 3 days to predict tomorrow's weather, or if it takes 5 years to predict what's going to happen with the climate in 2 years. So you've got to be able to get the compute lined up to be able to drive that so that the data is accurate, but it's also timely enough to be meaningful. And then what's happening relative to this data explosion that we're all seeing with AI is that, one, There's more sensor data than ever coming in. It used to be when people talked about sensors, it was a weather buoy, it was maybe the planes that you saw flying into hurricanes. Now, every autonomous vehicle is a weather, is a sensor, right? The nose of every aircraft, at the top of every building. I mean, there are literally billions of data points that are collecting these masses of data. The more data you have coming in, the more accurate the forecast, right? Or the more accurate the prediction. And so we don't lack for science and being able to go digest this, but what we lack are the people that can translate, right? And so the fact of the matter is that AI is going to do most of that knitting for us, which is scary in and of itself because we don't know how it works. It's just doing it, right? But we are going to need to train the next generation, not only of computer scientists, but policymakers, emergency responders. All of those folks need to understand how this works so that they can use it as a tool to protect lives and property.
So I'm going to come back to those specific challenges in a sec, but I want to roll back time. You're describing the gathering of massive amounts of measurements, enormous data sets, feeding that into computational models that have been built to handle those data sets to produce a forecast. This is something, by the way, that William & Mary is investing significantly in expanding. We are standing up, thanks to support of the state of Virginia, a Center for Environmental Forecasting, right, this coming year. So to produce a forecast, and in an ideal world, if you've got the computational muscle, you can do that in real time. You could do that for your neighborhood. You could be a city manager anywhere in the United States and you could do that. What about, so you've spent your career doing that, gathering massive amounts of heterogeneously measured data, feeding them into computer models to create forecasts. What about being at William & Mary prepared you for that work? Can you draw that line for us?
Absolutely. So I promised I'd only go off script one time.
Okay.
I'm doing it this time, right? There were two things that William & Mary gave me. Resilience and the ability to pull together and be challenged on multiple levels at the same time. Resilience came from the fact that I went to William & Mary to go be a lacrosse player. And I went down there in 1983, and in 1984, the lacrosse program was dropped, right? So the person who talked to me. Coach Franke got my parents to tell me that William & Mary was where I was going. And that was the second most important experience that I had. The most important experience was when the lacrosse program was dropped, he was the one that said, do not transfer. Right? We were talking about Delaware and Loyola and all these other places. He said, you will not get a better education than at William & Mary. Stay here. It's only lacrosse. And so over the course of the next 3 years, because at the undergrad level, we had to take philosophy, we had to take multiple domains of science, the sheer breadth of things that we were able to take forced us, and in those classes I was taught in every one of those classes and really challenged on things. I started to learn how to cross-pollinate, how to start to use the philosophy 101 pieces in my Vietnam paper, right? And when the faculty knew that's why we were there, and those behaviors got rewarded, right? They got called out for that. And so what I graduated from with William & Mary, it wasn't a 4.0. What I graduated with, it was not meteorology, climatology, it wasn't computer science or anything else. It was international relations. But it was an ability that was unparalleled to be able to connect the dots between things that mattered, right? And so I spent 25 years doing it, and now I sort of feel like I'm in my opus moment to figure out how to do that on the grandest scale I can.
Just thinking back to your college days, do folks in the room remember a moment where you said to somebody, maybe your parents, this is so weird, but the things, I'm taking these two classes, I'm taking a classics class and a finance class, and stuff is connecting. Do you remember that? How many people remember that moment when classes connected? Yes. That's actually a cognitive developmental threshold that you were going over, that the kind of curriculum that we teach enables, because you are learning, your brain is learning to synthesize across disparate systems of knowledge. That's when we talk about analytic capacity or critical thinking, that's what we are trying to achieve in the curriculum that William & Mary offers. And it's really powerful. All right, so last question, and then we're going to shift. What's one challenge that you would give to William & Mary for the next 5 years if we want to be the first choice partner for coastal resilience in the country?
It's easy. As a basketball player, you don't have to be the biggest person. You just have to be the first person under the basket in order to get the rebound, right? You got to beat the person you're covering, you got to beat them to the spot. And that's what William & Mary has to do, right? William & Mary's got all the tools right now to be able to go truly lead, not talk it and sort of fake it till you make it, but to start leading right now. But what we need to do is we need to put those pieces together, and quite frankly, we need people in this room, if they've got connections, to be able to help with internships, or whether there are other potential corporate partnerships, all those other things. We need to come together as a community to make sure that we're getting behind all of these unbelievable tools that we put together, so that when the world pops their head up and says, you know what, we need an institution whose data we trust, with whom we can communicate, who understands how to solve the right problem. That is us. We just need to let people know that.
Okay. Challenge accepted. Look at this space in 5 years. One of the things that you can count on, and Tim is helping enormously with this, is that William & Mary is looking for partners outside of the usual suspects in this particular domain of coastal resilience. So we're looking to corporate partners, we're looking to other NGOs, thinking about how might we put together, other university, how might we put together the puzzle pieces to produce what's needed in the field of forecasting for environmental change that's coming our way. All right, so this is off to the room. We have mics, yes? And if somebody wants to sing something out, I can always repeat. Okay, so there's mics in the back. I can always repeat a question, but what's on your minds? We hope for wide-ranging 10 or 15 minutes of conversation before we go back to snacks and drinks. What would you like to hear about this particular topic, coastal resilience, or about William & Mary? Yes? Okay. Yes, you do, because people in the back won't hear you.
Good. All right. Hi. Class of 1994, Jennifer, Baltimore, born and raised. I'm curious about, I hear all this about the data centers and the energy and the cost on the environment, and where are we going to come up with all this energy? And it's a very pertinent thing for those of you who live in like Baltimore County, Carroll County. Yes. Hey. So, that's a question to you. That's one thing. And the other thing I have to say is like more logistical, I guess, to anybody from the school here. Is there a place where we can go and see what needs you have, internship-wise, partnership-wise?
Yes.
That
let me answer that one.
Help us, know where we can fill
There
it.
she is. Stand up, Kathleen. Kathleen Powell, Chief Career Officer. It's a cabinet-level position at William & Mary. So we have committed that any undergraduate who wants one will graduate with a coached, credited, and compensated internship. And in the last 2 years now, we've met the need entirely. And we've done that via philanthropy and great partnerships. Yes. So, and if you're not part of one network, you should get on one network, because that's how you'll meet the students who have interests in your area. But talk to Kathleen. She will find you. Red jacket, striped shirt, okay? Thanks, Jennifer. And then the first question was about energy use. So a couple of quick things. If Derek Aday were here, he couldn't be here, our dean of the Batten School and director at VIMS, he'd say that the data centers are, in fact, not the largest users of energy that in our world today. But they are large users. And one of the things that we're doing at William & Mary is investing very systematically in much less expensive sources of energy for heating and cooling. So we are now the #2 campus in the country for geothermal heating and cooling. We have 531 wells. Give me another year, 18 months, and we'll be #1. And the idea there, if you've seen the models, the cost of electricity is skyrocketing. About 4/5 of our energy costs at William & Mary are electricity costs. About $8 million a year, right? About $8 million a year right now. If that goes up in 5 years, 75%, then the investment in geothermal is going to pay off really fantastically fast. And as it turns out, our geology is really good for it. The fancy way of saying is that it's an estuarine campus. It's a swamp, yes. Right. That's what you're going to say, yes.
Which,
right, but comes right back to Tim's point that
great from
the consequences of being on a coastline are immediate and real, and they take it requires adaptation to be able to find the resilient path forward. Our interest there, besides being good for the climate, is not to drive up the costs of going to college. And this is one of the biggest future cost drivers. So we're going to try to turn it from a rock to a pebble if we can. Yeah.
So I don't know how I got myself into this mess, but before my last role before I left Microsoft was, guess who was responsible for coming up with the number of how much energy is consumed by a data center running AI? Energy, water, and then what are the greenhouse gases emissions?
That was Tim.
Related to it. Yeah, I should have never said yes to that meeting. But in any event, so here we are. But I would just, all of these questions, they're so important because the reason that I got back involved in William & Mary was not for tailgates and everything else. It was because I've got 15-year-old twins, and they're going to have to figure out how to navigate in this world going forward, right? And this world is a tougher place to navigate than it was 30 years ago. And the reality of it is, I used to say to people, hey man, you've got to learn to play chess, not checkers. And I don't think anymore it's that. I think you need to learn to play 3D checkers, right? And so this data center issue is such a good example of it, of that yes, on its face, it is extraordinary, the energy that is consumed, but then you have to look at it on balance with where are other places that we could be saving more energy with less societal benefit that's coming from the very AI that's generating the prediction that we're putting together. And so I don't have the answer to that, and I'm not sure that this generation has the answer to that, but we need to train the next generation to figure this stuff out because it's getting more complicated, not less.
And because universities are here for all times coming, we're a really good place to make those kinds of long-term investments. It's very hard to think long-term right now because so much seems uncertain. But if we look at what are the evergreen imperatives, like do your best to keep the cost of college down. Don't flatten that curve of tuition increase. Then you start to run through the calculus of where you can find really significant impacts that will matter long term. Yeah. Other questions? Yes?
Thank you. I'm Marcia Simpkins, class of 75. And at Traditions Weekend, either in your session or for the Boyle Society, they talked about a William & Mary project that interns had done that had designed a water purification project that could be used, made out of simple materials available in an African bazaar.
Yes.
And I was having lunch with a Washington philanthropist last week, and he has an interest in Senegal, and he'd like to get that information to pass to his contacts. How can I get that?
You can talk to Matthew Lambert right here, and he'll make the connection directly.
Thank you.
Yes. I like these questions.
Greetings. Shannon, class of 1998. I had a question. When you talk about leadership in this area, do you see this as an opportunity for William & Mary to lead from an innovation point of view in the climate science and really drive it from the coastal areas, or do you see it as a way to lead to pull and knit, as you said, all these people who have similar beliefs and similar desires to lead and pull them together to make the movement bigger, faster, more impactful?
Yes.
Thank you.
That was one of those questions that is synthesizing what the conversation is producing in a beautiful William and Mary way. And the answer is truly yes, both of those things. Yeah. Other questions? What's on your minds? Yes, what do you want to know about William and Mary?
Switch 2002. Does William and Mary have an AI policy? I'm not going to name other universities, but some other universities kind of willy-nilly what professors can do with AI and what students can do with AI?
Sure, so the question was, does William and Mary have an AI policy? And I'll say we have really strong, clear guidelines that vary by discipline. So in our School of Computing and Data Science, the students are learning to design algorithms, and I hope, by the way, design them better, more ethically, more with an eye towards human needs and human flourishing than the current set of algorithms. The faculty are using AI to grade. Students are using them, for example, you don't need to spend a ton of time acquiring a specific programming language once you understand how programming languages work, and you can prompt a good AI to write code for you. So they're learning prompt structures as well as learning to build the underlying technology. And they're doing a liberal arts and sciences curriculum that helps them think about, requires them to think about ethical and human considerations in the way those tools are applied. Now, in other courses, there are faculty who say in the business school, I want you to use ChatGPT in this assignment, and I want to see 3 different stages. The first stage where you ran it through ChatGPT and the prompts you gave, then how you revised the prompts, and then how you revised the final product without further prompts. Then there will be classes where the faculty member will say, I'm really interested in how you craft a paragraph. Do not use AI because it's so effing boring, and it's not going to give you a fresh or exciting paragraph. And by the way, it's not going to help you marshal evidence for your argument effectively. So all of those modes are at work. I think there's a 4th mode that I want the campus to engage with in the coming year or 2, which is it comes from that 3rd space that I just described. What kinds of knowledge making do we need more now that AI is a part of the world that we live in than we did before? And those are kinds of knowledge making that have to do with working in teams, being empathetic to somebody you passionately disagree with, and using that disagreement to grow understanding, evaluating ethically a product, being very skeptical about a product from a machine, and doing accountability and quality control. Those kinds of knowledge making, I think our curriculum is really clearly dedicated to, but we could make the process of earning those capacities clearer, and we could name it more clearly. So when I talk to employers about what they're looking for when they hire in the age of AI, they say 2 things. I'm worried that there won't be entry-level jobs in my field, and I'm really worried about integrity, because bad use of AI could sink my company, and I can give you an example. So I take both of those as really pressing concerns. We can teach towards the second, and that's going to ensure that our students get hired, despite the first, our graduates. So that was a longer answer than I meant, but I hope it gets at the question. Yes. Other questions? Thoughts? What else do you want to know about William and Mary?
Hi, I'm Doug Brinkley, class of '86. Thank you,
Doug, it's a
Catherine,
pleasure.
for coming up here. It's great to see you. Tim, always good to see you. You talked about connections and you talked about collaborations and connecting dots. And I believe VIMS manages the coastline of Virginia. Is that correct?
Yes.
And I was curious about up here, the Chesapeake Bay Foundation does really good work.
Yes.
And I was just wondering about is there collaboration and connection with the Chesapeake Bay Foundation?
There is. Chesapeake Bay Foundation uses VIMS as science. And the Batten School is one of the key, I guess I would want to say, the quarterback of all of the overlapping and partnered groups that think about this vast watershed. The VIMS's flood modeling is not just for the coastline of Virginia, it's for the whole eastern seaboard. The next 15 years it was selected by the federal government. But the direct science that the Chesapeake Bay Foundation bases their work on is VIM science. So thanks for that shout out. That was great. See my football? See how I got football in there? Yeah. I'm a Patriots fan, just need to say. And I'm not sad that Bill Belichick is losing badly. Not sad at all. Other things you're curious about, just it doesn't have to be coastal science. I know there are parents here who are just down for family weekend. Yes, in the back of there, thank you.
My name is Eric Henderson. I have a future alum this coming May.
Yay.
Who happens to be of Bermuda. Thank you. And thank you for the award. William just adores you. You have a number of alums who are from Bermuda, and you have alums coming, including William, that are of Bermudian descent. You mentioned connections. He happens to be close to the leader of the country and the opposition leader, whose daughter is a William and Mary student currently. Is that the type of organization, like the nation of Bermuda, that you want to collaborate with?
It could be. So we are thinking about government and NGO organizations around the world as potential partners. This is something that if you wanted to pursue it, you'd want to talk to Dina Day, A-D-A-Y. Yes.
Sure.
Thank you. Yes. One more question. We have time for one. Can we do a lightning round? No, one more question. Okay, we won't do a lightning round. Time for one more question.
Can I just touch
You
on
ask.
the question about Bermuda? With all of the funding being disrupted across so many fronts right now, and not just direct to university, but NGOs and foundations and everybody, what's happening is that everybody is needing to rethink how they're going to work with each other. And so it just inside of William & Mary, you've got the Global Research Institute, who is focused primarily on policy, defense, conflict, other governmental issues. But now that you've got coastal adaptation becoming, if 3 million people in sub-Saharan Africa are going to be impacted by rising sea level, where are those 3 million people going to go? And if those 3 million people are on the move, what's that going to do to a conflict, right? And so you now start pulling all these things together. So these things that may 5 years ago have been seemingly unconnected because the ground has shifted underneath, all of a sudden they're neighbors. And that's why you can't be afraid to ask any of these questions or offer any introduction
Yes,
or anything else.
exactly.
The worst that happens is the answer is not yet.
Yep. Well, one of the things I'd say about William & Mary in the current world we're in, let's take federal funding just as a key example, is we are the ideal size. We never over-invested in research against, at the cost of undergraduate education. So we have less exposure. What many institutions did was go deep into research because the funding was so strong post World War II. That world is not one we're in anymore. William & Mary was slower to invest. We don't have a medical system. We don't have a big engineering school with massive wet labs. So what that has meant is we are nimbler. We have 4 or 5 areas where we're top in the world in research, and we can pivot to the sources of funding that those areas are going to be primed for more easily than many institutions. We love our international student population, but 30% of our student body is not international. So we don't look like many other selective public universities that way. Again, less exposure, more ability to continue to build those relationships internationally, that have always mattered to us and to see us through. I keep saying we are an ideal size. Just a little bit less than 10,000 graduate students and undergrads, a 13-to-1 student-to-faculty ratio, a place where you've got the benefits of university and the research prowess, and really dedicated to undergraduate learning. And that positions us in a way that, for most public universities, which are mega universities, 3 or 4 or 10 times our size, they're just not in that place. You can't move that fast. So hard as this time is, there's enormous opportunity for us. Yeah. I'm an athlete. I'm fond of the Tour de France. So everybody on my team knows that my mantra is that you make the most gains on the uphills. Who watches the Tour? Anyone? Yes? Okay, you know it's true. That's when you win the race. All right, then, let's go enjoy and schmooze, and thank you so much for being here. What a pleasure.